Another food processing plant is hit with a plane crash. At that point, disabling it and making it not able to put your food back out. So we'll talk just a bit about what was happening there and what this means and where we go from there. Marjorie Taylor Greene sits down in front of a Georgia court for 3 hours to testify about what happened during the Capitol Selfie Fest. And MSNBC comes out and says already that it's not going to do anything, which tells me that this was just to get campaign ad points. In other news, we will be talking about some of the Florida stuff that we left behind yesterday, including the Democrats shutting down the State House to try to stop the Stop Woke Act from passing. So we'll go over just a bit about what's going on with that. And Nancy Pelosi is going to be on RuPaul's Drag Race. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and, well, it's a Monday, which means that we've got a bunch of stuff to go over here. A bunch of stuff they tried to cram in over the weekend. A bunch of stuff they tried to cram in on a Friday when nobody was paying attention. We'll talk just a bit about that. Some deaths, some person who decided to tell the world that how he actually felt about climate change. That was an entertaining story, especially given the fact that as soon as I saw that, as soon as I figured out what that was, I remembered an old George Carlin joke talking a bit about what was going on with that. So it's going to be all this and more over on Contemporary. We've got a lot to get to. So let's get right down into it. By the way, just a little bit of a side note. I know I usually don't go over my cooking stuff on this particular channel because we typically talk the news and everything else, but I'm just going to admit it was a B+ attempt at the first time, but I think I figured out already how to perfect it. But if you load up 2 pineapples with 5 pounds of pork shoulder that's been dry rubbed and roasted for 3 hours, it's really good. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. A little bit mushy, a little bit of a weak flavor. I think that turning around and broiling it back in the juice as soon as it comes out of the pineapple, I think it's going to fix a lot of that. But just for a first attempt off of that, to find out where the flavor palette was and what to go from there was amazing. I might actually write a cookbook, I'm not going to lie. Just because I know that people have been asking me for certain recipes that I make that I don't necessarily write down, I just kind of throw together. But people have been asking me for it, so I want to share it back out for them. But all right, let's get into it because we've got a lot to go over here today. But before we get started, head on over, check out the start page for TurnsOfPagesProductions.com. TurnsOfPagesProductions.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. Once we get started, we will be carrying great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, and the Porch Boys, plus our friend Britt will be joining us whenever she has a new program coming back out. Britt, of course, crashing the Zoom call that we had going on when we did the Fall of Anakin Skywalker Ed Talk over the weekend. Thank you, John from the Porch Boys, for making that extra special. New channel coming in the near future. We're going to do movie reviews. So if you've got a movie that you think that I need to see that I haven't seen, or even one that I have seen, and a creator that you'd like me to work with, talking about and discussing the movie in depth, let me know. Put that in the Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. And we will get that channel up and going as well. That one is going to be a little bit more refined. It's going to be just a little bit less of what we see here. I am going to sit down and I'm going to pre-edit these interviews, these videos. I'm going to sit down with those and take out, not necessarily all the ums and the ahs, but, you know, watch for, you know, sometimes some of the racist stuff. But also, I think, put some clips from the movies that we watch into it as well, because A, this will get around YouTube censors, and B, this might push some new people over to this channel as well. So we will see what happens with that. We will see where that goes. That will also be picked up, by the way, by TurnsOfPagesProductions.com, so go and check that out. And if you do want to help us out, we are doing the Give, Send, Go. I'm going to start throwing the link up in the chat as we go, and I'm actually going to add it to the Nightbot as well. But if you guys want to help out the webpage, givesendgo.com/TurnsOfPages101. Unfortunately, government name is up there on the front, and I'm going to have to come out and be open about that. But it is what it is. It's what we have to do to raise money for something good that we want to do here. So go and check that out. We want to make sure that Bobby Joe gets paid, and we do want to bring you a new site that is by the common man for the common man. That has always been my dream. Ever since I got into this space, that's what I wanted to do, was get news to the common man from people that are just like them, and I think that's going to be an important step for this, is to come back out and get this. So check that out, givesendgo.com/TurnsOfPages101 if you want to help out with that. Let's get into the finance of the morning here, looking at the Dow, which tanked on Friday. There's no other way to put this. Another 1,000 points down throughout the day on Friday, and that is after another 300-point loss that actually translated to a 600-point loss because it spiked up 300 points at the beginning of the day on Thursday. In addition to that, over 2 days, over 1,600 points gone off the Dow, and Friday's drop is almost 3%, 2.82%. That is with the rate hike coming, that is with some other things watching, and it looks like the futures are looking down as well, so I hate to say this, given the fact that I know this is going to affect a lot of people's their retirement funds and a lot of the investment they have in their house, but just there's a little bit of a masochistic part of me that wants to see the Dow hit 1,000, not 10,000, not drop 1,000. I actually want to see it hit 1,000 just to show that these policies don't work. But that's what we have off of that, so that's where we're going with that, and that is what we are doing with that. So that's what we see off of that. Looking at the Bitcoin, let's bring that back to the 5 days so we can see what happened over the weekend. Going back to April 22nd, looks like Bitcoin has held somewhat steady. It took a fairly significant drop off of the 40,000 mark back down to the 39,000 mark, and then just kind of steady tumble, bringing us back down to 38,803, and it looks like it is trying to climb right now again, so we will continue to watch that. We will see what happens day over day as we watch this tomorrow, and let's see what gas is going to be. Oof. Well, the good news is that the top level ones didn't go up. The Fleet Farm is at 369. That was the top level of gas that we saw in Madison when we last checked in with this on Friday. But the bottom levels have gone away. Gone are your 343s, your 345s, your 349s, and your 355s. The low price leaders for the gas in the Madison area, and of course, Partyville is not exactly Madison area. That's all the way up in Columbia County, but that is at 364. That's the lowest in what they consider the Madison area. Otherwise, holding fairly steady, 367 to 369. A 2-cent differential throughout the city, and yeah, that's well, at least again, the top's not going up. The bottom is coming up, but the top is not going up. So that is what you have to see if you are driving through Wisconsin. Your local prices may be different, so do pay attention to where you have going off of that. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. Dow Jones futures fall after bears hunt down market bulls. Twitter Elon Musk deal close. Yeah, I don't have, because it was only happening about 14 minutes ago before we started, but just before we got started, and I haven't had a chance to review it yet, it does look like the Independent is reporting that they are going to make the deal yet today. So we will probably be talking about that tomorrow, but we'll talk about some of the upcoming details off of that yet today. From Ed Carson, Dow Jones futures fell solidly early morning, along with S&P 500 futures, and NASDAQ futures. Twitter reportedly is warming to a takeover by Tesla CEO Elon Musk, with a report that the deal could come as soon as today. The stock market suffered yet another week of losses while Treasury yields continue to climb. The major indices hit resistance last week and broke below support levels. It was even worse beneath the surface. Leading stocks in sectors that had held up well showed strain, with miners in particularly selling off hard. Buying opportunities quickly reversed lower. Growth stocks continued to tumble. It's the peak week for earnings, with Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google parent Alphabet, ExxonMobil, Caterpillar, Chevron, Raytheon Technologies, the weapons makers, and General Dynamics among the hundreds of companies reporting this week. But with market conditions deteriorating, the flood of earnings gives investors yet another reason to stay on the sidelines. But keep a close eye on big earnings such as Apple, Exxon, and General Dynamics and the market reactions to these reports. Tesla is on the IBD leaderboard and the IBD 50. XOM is on the Big Cap 20 list, which is filled with energy and commodity plays, which are going to be struck by the gas prices. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.6% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures lost 0.7%, and NASDAQ futures sank 0.8%. A small number of pinko pox cases in Beijing is raising concerns of a lockdown in China's capital. Meanwhile, Shanghai remains locked down for a fourth week, though Tesla and other factories have resumed limited production. They're going to try to do this again before Election Day. I promise you. They need to find some way to make sure that you are not going to the ballots, that you are taking this, you're getting your little ballot in the mail and stuffing it in there so someone can look and say, oh, ex-Republican here, populist Republican, gone. Let's see. The Shanghai Composite plunged 5.1% on Monday. One could say it got Shanghaied. Chinese yuan continues to tumble versus the US dollar, hitting a one-year low. The dollar has rallied significantly versus the euro and other major currencies in recent months. Didn't Israel just sell off a bunch of their US dollar for yuan as something to back themselves up? Ha ha! However, the People's Bank of China cut foreign exchange reserve requirements by a full percentage point. That news, which broke around 7:20 a.m. Eastern Time, paired Dow futures losses slightly. Crude oil prices fell 5% to $97 a barrel. China's ongoing lockdowns are raising concerns about demand. Copper futures also fell solidly. The 10-year yield retreated 8 points to 2.83%, which means it was at 2.91% at one point. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that is what we see off of that. The big news of this week is going to be what happens with the earnings and whether or not we actually get some good markets coming back off of that. Now, with some of the names that are going off of here, Caterpillar, if this infrastructure bill goes through, is going to be one of the big ones, except for the fact that, we don't want fuel prices up there, and look at what Caterpillar equipment has to take for fuel. But also ExxonMobil, who is probably going to make a pretty penny off of what's happening off of this. But your growth names, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. Has there been a new iPhone recently? I don't even know. But we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Let's grab one from CNBC. Dow futures fall about 200 points as the April sell-off in market continues, from Sarah Min. We'll just touch on this briefly, because a lot of this is going to be review information from what we just saw. U.S. stock futures fell solidly on Monday, pointing to a continuation of an April market sell-off that's pushed the Dow lower for 4 straight weeks. Fear about a global economic slowdown loomed as Asian stock markets cratered on Monday amid concerns about pinko pox cases in China. Oil prices declined and yields retreated on the fears. Wall Street is also bracing for a stacked week of earnings. The Dow lost about 250 points. The S&P futures dipped, they've come back up because at the time this article was published at, I think, 6 o'clock last night, they were down 0.9%, and the NASDAQ fell 1%. So some of that is coming back. The Dow posted its worst one-day performance since October of 2020 on Friday, dropping more than 900 points and pushing the average to its 4th straight weekly loss for the week. The S&P and the NASDAQ dropped 2.8% and 3.8% respectively, posting their 3rd straight weekly declines. Stocks are kicking off the week deeply in the red as all the anxiety and negativity from Thursday and Friday carried over the weekend, wrote Adam Crisafulli of Vital Knowledge in a note to clients. The dramatic shift in central bank tightening expectations last week remains a huge overhang, but China is quickly rising to the top of the list of market fears as pinkpox shutdowns continue to spread to Beijing. So, we will see what happens with that. Our investors are saying, well, don't pay attention to the fuel prices or anything else like that. It's the Fed. I actually saw a tweet talking about the Fed on Friday that suggested, and I forget, I'll have to paraphrase it unfortunately, but I forget how it went. It was when Reuters announced the fact that a lot of this was happening because the Fed decided to go back up into the 50 basis points increase on the interest rate. The tweet suggested to me that this person believed that the Fed is doing this specifically to destroy the Biden administration. If I remember correctly, the tweet said something to the effect of raise the interest rate, destroy the stock market, destroy the stock market, destroy the economy. And I'm like, you think that this printing can happen forever? They have to do something to rein this in. Otherwise, the government will come back, and the central banks and the banks around the country will just come back and say, more money, please, more money, please, more money, please, without any sort of stop to them. Yes, this is going to tank the markets, but this is going to keep us from, $25 a gallon milk because the currency's become so worthless. They're printing and they're printing and they're printing. But, of course, we have enough of the Biden babies out there on Twitter, which is probably going to get a big overhaul coming up here at some point here. But enough of the Biden babies are looking at this saying, well, anything that's happening bad here, that's just an external force to make the president look bad because, our buck stops here president wants to go blame everybody else except for his own goddamn policy failures. But that's what we see coming off of that. Let's get started in the news today. And, well, first we got to throw our F's in the chat because this is going to be another one of those years where once a week somebody prominent dies. Reading from CNN. Former Senator Orrin Hatch, longest-serving GOP U.S. Senator, dies at 88. From Rachel Janfaza and Sarah Murray. Former Utah Senator Orrin Hatch, the longest-serving Republican senator in U.S. history, died in Salt Lake City on Saturday at the age of 88. Hatch, the former Senate President pro tempore, served in the chamber for 42 years, from 1977 to 2019. And of course, me and my term limits thing, I think that's way too long. Not necessarily because I want there to be some artificial limit off of there, but the process is too hard. There should have at least been one challenge throughout those 42 years. Like, hey, I challenge thee to a primary contest. The Hatch Foundation confirmed his death in a release which did not include a cause. A man of wisdom, kindness, character, and compassion, Orrin G. Hatch was everything a U.S. Senator should be, said A. Scott Anderson, chairman of the Hatch Foundation. He exemplified a generation of lawmakers brought up on the principles of comity and compromise. He embodied those principles better than anyone. In a nation divided, Orrin Hatch helped to show us a better way by forging meaningful friendships on both sides of the aisle. An ardent conservative, Hatch favored corporate tax cuts, limited government, deregulation, and military spending. I also enjoy 3 of those 4 things, by the way. During his time in office, he consistently voted against gay rights, abortion and stricter gun laws. He reached across the aisle on issues including AIDS education and stem cell research, as well as the DREAM Act. As the ranking Republican on the Senate Finance Committee, Hatch ushered the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act during the Trump administration, which was lauded as the biggest tax code change in 3 years and criticized for favoring corporations and the wealthy. I love how CNN has got to get their editorial into all of this and tell us, in the best possible way, of course, how absolutely evil Orrin Hatch was. That entertains me more than anything else that we're seeing here, just what it is that they have to do to come back out here and do this. Oh, well, we think that he reached across the aisle. We think that he was wonderful. We think that he did great things. But he made tax cuts for the wealthy and the rich and the corporations, and he hated women. He was anti-women and anti-gay rights and anti-stricter gun laws. Evil Orrin Hatch. Hatch also drew criticism for helping then-President Trump dismantle the Bears Ears and the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monuments in Utah. Those are in Zion, because both of those appear in the Honest Hearts DLC for Fallout New Vegas. Hatch announced in January 2018 that he wouldn't seek re-election shortly after his local paper, the Salt Lake Tribune, called for him to step down. His retirement cleared the way for Mitt Romney. Well, that is actually one thing that I can say bad about Orrin Hatch then, is that he enabled Mitt Romney to go back into government service. That is a grave sin beyond all grave sins right there. A mass Republican, a carpetbagging Republican, not a Utah Republican, and 2012 presidential candidate. To return to elected office by running for and winning the seat, Romney was and remains a critic of Trump. Yeah, Romney's also an old guard GOP warmonger fucking pig. Ahead of the Hatch's retirement announcement, then President Trump urged him to stay in Washington during the 2017 event in Utah. Trump called Hatch a true fighter and said he hoped the Republican would continue to serve in the Senate for a very long time to come. Okay, very long. Great guy, Orrin Hatch. Love Orrin Hatch. Okay. At the time of Hatch's retirement announcement, then White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said that Trump was very sad to see Orrin Hatch leave. So, of course, because it's Orrin Hatch, CNN had to get their editorial in. But, you know, a guy, not necessarily somebody that I would agree with either, but he is gone. And, well, we'll see what happens with the world from there. Again, the gravest sin was clearing the way for letting Mitt Romney back into the Senate. Maybe he'll have to answer to Satan for that. Or maybe Romney will, I don't know. We'll see what happens with there, and we'll see what goes with that. Alright, let's talk a bit about some violence in the area before we get into the big news of the day. 4 people shot in D.C. Suspect took his own life as cops closed in. A story that in a major gun control time got almost completely ignored. A crazed gunman allegedly shot 3 adults and a girl in a leafy section of D.C. on Friday afternoon before taking his own life, hours after police closed in on the apartment where he was suspected of carrying out the attack, authorities said. The suspect allegedly erected a sniper-type setup inside his 5th floor apartment and fired indiscriminately at passerbys around 3:20 p.m. on Van Ness Street near Connecticut Avenue in the northwest section of the city, police said. 2 women, a man, and a 12-year-old girl were injured by the gunfire and hospitalized in stable condition. One woman was in her 30s, and the other, who was grazed in the back, was in her 60s, police said. The girl was shot in her arm, and a 54-year-old white male, retired police officer, was also struck, according to authorities. Authorities did not identify the suspect and would not confirm if he was Raymond Spencer, 23, who had earlier been named as a person of interest in the shooting that took place near a prep school and a number of colleges. Before the suspect was found dead, police had urged residents in the upscale neighborhood to shelter in place. Police recovered 6 firearms and multiple rounds of ammunition in the suspect's van, Ness Street layer. It appears that the weapons were legally purchased, police said. The suspect had also appeared to have live-streamed the shooting on social media, police said, but added that the footage has yet to be authenticated. Metro Police Department Chief Robert Conti said that it appeared the victims were randomly targeted while going about their business on the streets in the District of Columbia. This was very much a sniper-type setup with a tripod, and this person, obviously, his intent was to kill and hurt members of the community, Conti told reporters. Nothing about this story makes sense. Absolutely nothing about this story makes sense. I just think that it speaks to the depravity of some of the individuals that we deal with out here. Someone who would do something like this. I really don't have a lot of words for it, KTZed. The shooting scene is near several schools and Embassy Row in the nation's capital. Edmund Burke, a prep school that serves students in grades 6 through 12, Howard University Law School, and the University of D.C. are all located within the blocks of the shooting. So, oh man, I'm sure they didn't want that to get out in the picture when they took the pictures. But realistically, when we look at this, we have somebody from a sniper's lair who was not seen doing the shooting, by the way, just a person of interest, who had killed himself as police closed in, who was randomly and indiscriminately shooting into a crowd, but weirdly enough, nobody died again. Boy, do I have questions. Boy, do I have a lot of questions about this one. And this story did not get a lot of airplay. I actually had to dig for this story. Had it not been for another Discord server, not even mine, that I'm in, I would have never even known that this happened. But yes, far, far away, unidentifiable, killed himself before he got up there, video live streaming, but nobody's going to be able to see it because we have to go confirm its authenticity. Man, do I have a lot of questions about this. And yeah, it says, was pointed out in the chat, the New York Post and the mainstream media didn't lighten the skin off this, but, you know, Raymond Spencer, if you didn't read through the article and see the mugshot there, what would you think when you saw Raymond Spencer? But, again, nobody was killed, thankfully. And that's what we see coming off of that. Breaking. Well, not breaking anymore because this was from Friday. A man reportedly burst into flames outside the Supreme Court.
Get back to the next.
So you can hear the dude's screams of pain off of this, which, I mean, honestly, when I look at this, I look at that and say, well, if you're gonna scream like that, you maybe shouldn't have lit yourself on fire. But you know, it does remind me. It was an old joke from George Carlin, he was talking about abortion because he's George Carlin. That's what he does, and you know. For all those people out there who were saying that they protest abortion and everything, well, you know, here's the thing that you need to remember off of this. Protesters in South goddamn Vietnam knew how to stage a fucking demonstration. Light yourself on fire! Let's see some smoke to match that fire in your belly. Well, apparently that's what this guy did. And I think it's funny the way that they tweeted this out saying, breaking, a man reportedly burst into flames outside the Supreme Court, like he's just walking by and, oh dear, I believe I've spontaneously combusted. When that doesn't appear to be what happened, reading from ABC. Man dies after setting himself on fire outside Supreme Court building, officials say. From Jack Date, Luke Barr, and Meredith Deliso. A man died after setting himself on fire outside the U.S. Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. on Friday, officials said. The incident occurred at around 6:30 p.m. on the plaza in front of the building, Supreme Court spokesperson Patricia McCabe said in a statement. Supreme Court Police, U.S. Capitol Police, and D.C. Police responded, and the person was airlifted to an area hospital. D.C. Police said Saturday the man, identified as Wynn Bruce of Boulder, Colorado, succumbed to his injuries. No one else was injured, according to McCabe. D.C. Police is investigating the death. U.S. Capitol Police tweeted around 6:40 p.m. that a medical helicopter had just landed near the U.S. Capitol building for a medical emergency. This is not a public safety issue, it said. The helicopter left the area around 15 minutes later. The area remained closed after the incident for further investigation, McCabe said. The circumstances surrounding the incident remain unclear. Just some of this stuff preliminarily, and I'm going to go back and we'll keep looking into this as we go, but it does appear that this person was a climate protester. He did this to raise awareness for climate change. The green checks have not verified this yet, as of yet, but that seems to be the first conversation we're having about this, is the fact that this guy was out there protesting for climate change. So, we have that. How brainwashed you have to be, though, to walk out in front of the Supreme Court and light yourself on fire. Probably using an accelerant that makes carbon dioxide on top of it. But that's what we see after that. Let's see. Some more news on the front of the food processing plants. This one happening over the weekend, and we'll definitely be talking about this this afternoon over on KTZed Redemption, because I believe, well, especially given what Britt told us over on Saturday, I believe this is in the general neighborhood, the general area that both Britt and KTZed live in. So I'm not sure where it is in relation to them, and I'm not going to say where they are, so nobody in the chat can come and say where it is in relation to them. But if I do understand my Georgia geography correctly, this is in the general vicinity of the both of them. So let's talk a bit about what's going on here. No survivors in small plane crash at Georgia General Mills plant, officials say. From Alicia Fieldstad. A small plane crash on Thursday at a General Mills plant in Georgia killed everyone on board, officials said. It is unclear how many people were aboard the Cessna 340 when it crashed at 6:45 p.m. in Covington. Captain Ken Malcolm with the Covington Police Department said. The twin-engine plane was traveling from Covington Airport when it veered sharply in a northeast direction and went down, crashing into 3 empty tractor trailers on the property of General Mills, Malcolm said. Oh, veered sharply, you say? So it was going in a completely different direction, and it just sharply went, oddly enough, directly back to a food processing plant, you say. Malcolm told NBC affiliate WXIA of Atlanta that the plane exploded on impact. A fire caused by the crash was contained, he said. The National Transportation Safety Board said Thursday that it would be investigating the crash. General Mills said in a statement that no employees at the food manufacturer were hurt. Well, how much product was hurt? Where was this in relation to the building? I don't see any maps of the building right now. Let me see if we can find just an image of the plane crash. Because that's my big question. It's not necessarily if somebody got hurt or somebody didn't get hurt. It's how much food production does this affect? Now, they say they crashed into 3 empty tractor trailers, but, is there structural damage to the building? Are there lines that have to be shut down? Let me just see if there's any sort of imaging off of this. No, they're not showing anything top down as of yet. But it does look like, just from some of the images that I'm seeing, Google Images, that this was a spectacular crash. And it does look like this was very, very close to the building. So there may be some structural damage. Whether or not it hit the building, there still may be some some superstructure damage from the impact and the shock that came off of that. Still investigating, and I'm sure that whatever line is over in that area is probably, that has to be shut down too. So at least until they know whether or not the building will stay up or not. So some things to watch for, some things to see, and some things that we'll watch off of that. From Fox 5 out of Atlanta, investigators comb through plane crash wreckage at General Mills plant in Covington. No survivors after the fiery plane crash, of course. From Fox 5 Atlanta digital team. Investigators spent Friday at the General Mills plant in Covington combing through the wreckage of a deadly plane crash that happened the previous evening. A twin-engine Cessna crashed into several semi-trailers in a remote part of the cereal plant on Thursday, killing 2 people, the Covington Police Department said. The National Traffic Safety Board and the FAA are investigating the crash along with local agencies. The plant is located at the 152,000 Industrial Park Boulevard Northeast. It's about 0.8 of a mile southeast of the eastern edge of the runway at Covington Municipal Airport. So they didn't go far at all. Covington is located about 30 miles southeast of Atlanta. Captain Ken Malcolm with the Covington Police Department said around 6:46 p.m. a twin-engine Cessna appeared to start having engine trouble. Witnesses told police it traveled northeast but appeared to be having trouble gaining altitude and was making unusual engine noises. Malcolm said the plane then veered right and came straight down. Police said the plane appeared to explode on impact. Witnesses say there was a series of small explosions after the crash. About 6 trailers were parked together and believed to be mostly empty caught fire and were damaged after the crash. A massive dark plume of smoke could be seen rising above the Georgia city. Federal investigators will be looking at a number of factors when trying to determine the cause of Thursday's crash. The weather was nice and mostly clear that night, according to Fox 5 storm team, but winds, turbulence, or temperature changes may have played a factor. Another factor investigators will look at is the human factor. Investigators said that the owner of the aircraft was being trained by a pilot trainer at the time of the crash. They were performing touch-and-go exercises. NTSB and FAA officials will also look at the air traffic in the area at the time. So, if this was just one crash somewhere randomly, where a plane had gone down after showing engine trouble, with a new pilot that was just being trained in the seat, going in and just happened to go to a food processing plant, I would have said, after the chat for the dude, sorry to hear about that, let's move on. And this actually probably wouldn't have been made contemporary. The thing that gets me is the fact that this is happening a week after 4 other similar crashes and fires happened, while we're in the middle of a supply chain issue, which also happened within a couple months of several other food processing plant crashes and disasters and explosions. I do have a lot of questions. Now, I can Occam's razor this away and say that this has mostly to do with the fact that it just happened to happen with a plane crash, but given its relation to the other several that we discussed on Thursday on this program, does make me have a little bit of questions, does make me a little bit suspicious. So we will see what happens with that. We will see where this goes and continue to watch this, and hopefully we'll have some more information tonight when we talk about this on KTZed Redemption. Let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yay! Look, you guys know I don't care about Marjorie, or no, not don't care about. I do care about. I don't particularly care for Representative Greene, but whether or not she runs is between the people of Georgia and her, not between the DNC, not between anything else. And this is, again, a conversation where we talk about the fact that they know that they can't beat her fair and square, so they have to go and cook up and concoct these things. And again, I don't necessarily believe that this was to try to keep her off the ballot. I think this was just to get campaign fodder. Let's read, starting with CNN. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene testifies for more than 3 hours in hearing about whether to disqualify her from seeking re-election. Okay. I understand this is, first, before I get into any of this, I understand that this is a civil suit, which has different rules than a criminal suit. And she would be able to take the fifth and not take the stand if this was a criminal suit. This is not a criminal suit. In fact, they have absolutely nothing to try her criminally on, and they know it. That's why they're taking this as a civil suit. But they can also call her to the stand and force her to testify in a civil suit, which I think is wrong. I don't think that should be the case. The Fifth Amendment should absolutely extend to a civil suit. You should have the presumption of innocence in all cases, and during the civil suit, the lawyer should be able to make their case without bringing you up to the stand, just like in a criminal suit, or a criminal trial. That's my piece on that. But then again, of course, this had absolutely nothing to do with trying to disqualify her from the ballot. They're looking for sound bites. For Marshall Cohen, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia testified under oath for 3 hours Friday at an unprecedented disqualification hearing that focused on whether she constitutionally is barred from holding office because of her role in the January 6th Selfie Fest. On the witness stand, Greene repeated debunked claims that former President Trump won the 2020 election, which again is what they were looking for, and even brought up false-flag conspiracy theories that the U.S. Capitol was attacked by a rogue FBI agent or racial justice activist who dressed up as Trump supporters. Yes, gotta love that editorial spin. And of course, again, just like I said with Orrin Hatch, it's CNN. They're not going to come out and report this. They're not going to say, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about the fact that there may have been FBI agents. She talked about the fact that she did not believe that that Trump lost the election. It's like the debunked conspiracy theories, the debunked claims, and the false flag conspiracy theories. Her testimony during extraordinary all-day hearing in Atlanta makes Greene the first member of Congress to answer questions under oath about her activities related to January 6th. The candidacy challenge was initiated by a group of Georgia voters. No, it wasn't. Now, they actually may have been the ones who filed the paperwork. But the challenge was initiated in New York City. Let's be completely honest, and Washington, D.C. A bunch of people got together and started combing through anything that they could to go back out and find, okay, what is it that we can use because we can't beat this person at the ballot box? How can we keep this person off the ballot? What can we do? Oh, the 14th Amendment. Oh, we call this an insurrection. What is this? Oh, hey, let's get this to go as well. Who are working with a coalition of liberal activists and constitutional scholars. There's your New York and D.C. right there. They face an uphill climb to remove Greene from the ballot, and the judge on Friday appeared skeptical of some of their arguments. It's because they had no intention of getting her off the ballot. They got what they wanted. They got exactly what they wanted off of this. Their lawyers grilled Greene about her ties to the far-right provocateurs and extremist groups who fueled the carnage at the Capitol. But her testimony did not establish that she had been aware of plans for violence or that she had coordinated with any rioters, and she deflected many questions about her activities before January 6th by saying more than 50 times that she couldn't remember. Not going to go down that road just yet. I was asking people to come for a peaceful march, which is what everyone is entitled to do under the First Amendment. But I was not asking them to actively engage in violence or any type of action, Greene testified, pushing back on the assertion that she had aided in the Selfie Fest. The case revolves around a Civil War era provision of the 14th Amendment, which says any American official who takes an oath to uphold the Constitution is disqualified from holding any future office if they had engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid to comfort to enemies thereof. But how this applies today is a hotly debated legal question. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. State Judge Charles Boudreaux, who presided over the all-day hearing, is expected to issue his recommendation within the next few weeks. Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, will then take Boudreaux's findings and decide whether to disqualify Green from the May 17th primary. The outcome in this case would have national implications because liberal attorneys have said they'll mount a similar challenge against Trump if he runs for president in 2024. And that's, I think, the biggest part of this is it's not necessarily to get some first-term representative out of there. I know that they're trying to throw Cawthorn. I actually did not throw the lingerie Cawthorn story up here just because I didn't care. And I don't think anybody else should care either. I mean, this is a huge hot-button issue on MSNBC, but what you did in your private life before representing the government, it's not about... That's not what this is for. It's how you vote on the floor and whether or not the people are comfortable with you being there. And Madison Cawthorn is, for all intents and purposes, insanely popular in his district. Same with Green. Marcus Flowers is going to tank in this district. R plus 14. No matter how much money Act Blue shuffles around and takes away from other candidates, Marcus Flowers is not going anywhere in this district. Now, he could possibly enjoy better success in districts closer to Atlanta. He definitely could do that. But in this district, R plus 14, no. And the claims, as they said, are dubious at best. So, but what they did is, as I said, and we'll watch some of the clips, they got their video clips so they can go and plaster them across every TV station in Georgia 14 from here until eternity. All right, let's grab one from the BBC. Marjorie Taylor Greene. I did not call for violent Capitol insurrection. Oh yeah, that's right. This is the BBC. There's no author given. A U.S. Congresswoman has denied calling for an insurrection in Washington as part of a trial challenging her right to stand for re-election. Marjorie Taylor Greene is being tried under a Civil War era law. She's not being tried. That's the problem. She's being sued, not tried. That's the reason that she had to take the stand, is because she's being sued. That bars officials from holding office. They violate their oath to protect the U.S. The Georgia Republican, a close ally to Donald Trump, is one of the party's most right-wing members in Congress. No, she is not. Holy shit, no, she's not. Far right! Yeah, no, she's not that. She's just a stupid MAGA populist who says the right thing a little bit too perfectly every time. That's all that she is. Democrats claim she played a key role in the 6th January U.S. Capitol Selfie Fest. On Friday, Ms. Greene, 47, became the first sitting lawmaker to testify under oath about her alleged role in the attack on 2021 as Congress was meeting to cement Biden's election victory over Mr. Trump. She testified to the Georgia courtroom that she had no knowledge of any attempt to illegally interfere with the vote counting in Congress of that day. She also repeated false claims that Mr. Trump actually won the election. False claims. The case centers around a provision of the 14th Amendment. Yeah, we saw this. So a lot of this is repeat information. So that's what we see coming off of that. Oh, yeah. Under oath, she said that she had no memory of a statement that denied that references to 1776 amounted to a secret call for violence. What? For example, on January 5th January, one day before the riot, Miss Green said that in an interview, "This is our 1776 moment," in which lawyers said it was a reference to the year that the U.S. declared independence from Britain, triggering a war. The Georgia state seal hanging on the court, she noted, has the year 1776 written on it, prompting a laugh from the judge. This is so stupid. Everything is stupid. The thing that got me, and the thing that really, really made... I don't get angry on Twitter a lot, but the thing that really made me seethe about this entire thing was the fact that they kept saying, "Whoa, I don't remember. I plead the fifth. That's just your admission of guilt. You're admitting you're guilty and you don't want to confess it up on the stand." Dude, fuck you, first off. No, that is not what any of that is. Now, as far as bringing people up on a civil suit, of course, this is a civil suit, so that's why Green is called to testify. If she'd have been called to testify under a criminal trial, which they can't do because they've got jack fucking shit nothing. And that's the other side of this, is without an actual conviction, there's no due process, and she can't be barred from this, and everybody knows this. But the reason they did the civil suit is because they can get her to testify. And I have a problem with this in our civil court system, that lawyers for the prosecution, or the plaintiff, I should say, in this particular situation, not prosecution, but the plaintiff lawyers, think that they can come back out here and call these people up to the stand who, under a criminal standard, would have the right against self-incrimination. But because it's a private citizen coming up there, now you can compel this person to testify, which I think is bullshit. And any lawyer worth his salt should be able to make his case without calling up to the testimony of all this, or being able to hear, "Oh, I can't remember, I don't, oh, yeah, if you can't remember, that means you're guilty. Oh, she must have learned this from the school of Donald Trump to say that you can't remember over and over again." What a crock of fucking bullshit. What an absolute load of bullshit. We have citizen protections in our Constitution, or we used to, if the left gets any more power. And pay attention to what they're saying about the Fifth Amendment. Because if these people, my biggest fear is that if these people stay in power for too long, that's the one that's going to be gone. And that's there to prevent political persecution. Persecution for having different beliefs. Just like they did in England at the time. That's the same thing with Trump. And, oh, you gotta go, he's gonna have to testify. We're gonna hear. He's gonna be forced to do this under oath. Because it's a civil suit. Because you have jack shit on criminal. Yeah, I brought that up, Randy. I did bring that up. Nobody seemed to have a problem with it when Hillary Clinton couldn't recall. But yes, and we'll look at some of the clips from this as well. But my biggest, my deepest, my closely held belief to this, even though I don't care for Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though I do hope that she gets primaried back out, hopefully by somebody else who is just as populist as she. But I can't stand this woman. But whether or not she is in the U.S. House of Representatives is between her and the residents of Rome, Georgia, and the surrounding area for the district beyond that. Nobody else should have a say in this whatsoever. That's my piece on that. Let's look at some of this here. Asen tweets out, question. Well, let's listen, because it's only a 26-second clip.
You discussed that topic, the idea that there should be martial law declared in the United States prior to the inauguration of President Biden.
Your Honor, I'm going to have to object. I actually represent the President of the United States, and that's covered by executive privilege. She can't get into any of this conversation.
Executive privilege, she's not a member of the executive, and this counsel is here on her behalf, not on Mr. Trump's behalf, unless there's something I missed. It's not a proper objection, Your Honor. You discuss that topic.
I mean, if it's covered by executive privilege and that same lawyer is making the same argument, yeah, that's a soundbite they can use for that hearing as well. So that makes sense. I don't know if the judge sustained that or not. Let's see. Let's grab one from CNN. It's a video, and we get to listen to the anchors too. I'm not answering that. Marjorie Taylor Greene testifies at hearing challenging her congressional candidacy. Let's listen.
Marshall Cohen has been in the courtroom. Marshall, I watched a bit of the cross-examination, and it was contentious at points. What else did she say?
It has been contentious, and she's been on the stand for 2 hours so far. This is unprecedented. She's the first lawmaker, first member of Congress to be questioned under oath about January 6th. She said some things, but really the story kind of has been what she hasn't said. She has not been able to answer a lot of questions. I don't recall, I don't remember, questions about meetings before January 6th or even about posts that she put on social media where she did use some very violent rhetoric in the run-up to January 6th. Something else that has sort of been featured, a real feature of the last few hours, has been something else that has sort of been featured.
There we go.
That the 2020 election had been...
About the winner of that election.
Well, I'm not sure we got a clear answer on this. You did believe at this time that the 2020 election had been stolen by the Democrats from Mr. Trump, right?
I was asking people to come for a peaceful march, which is what everyone is entitled to do under their First Amendment, but I was not asking them to actively engage in violence or any type of action.
Right, so she is flatly denying. She says she never called on anyone to do anything violent. That's a key pillar of her defense. But on the stand, she has said she still thinks that there was tremendous fraud in 2020 and that Joe Biden did not actually win that election. Victor?
There was also this moment.
Oh, piss right the fuck off, dude. The editorial off of that. Well, the debunked claim, and she says that she believed it. This is your objective news reporting right here. Let's see if there's any more clip off of her off of this. I think so.
Waffled. Take a look at this.
You think that Speaker Pelosi is a traitor to the country, right?
I'm not answering that question. It's speculation. It's hypothetical.
You've said that, haven't you, Ms. Green, that she's a traitor to the country?
No, I haven't said that.
Okay. Put up Plaintiff's Exhibit 5, please.
Oh, no, wait. Hold on now. I believe by not upholding the securing the border, that violates her oath of office.
Yeah, Victor. So, look.
Now, of course, CNN's not going to show what it is that what they're using as Exhibit 5, but yeah, this is a mess. And again, none of this has anything to do with any of this. This is especially the Nancy Pelosi thing. Like, what does that have to do with what they're sitting there for? You might have said one time that Nancy Pelosi's a traitor to the country. Yeah, that has nothing to do with this hearing. That has nothing to do with whether or not a selfie fest was called. I can't even say that. I can't even say that word when trying to explain it objectively. All right, what else do we have here? Bill That Remains. Phil Labonte of All That Remains, saying she might not be as politically stupid as I thought. And of course, Lydia from the Tim Pool show is like, if you think she's stupid, it's just because you haven't met her. No, let's listen to this.
And when you were notified that people had entered the Capitol illegally, did you also understand at that point that there had been violence at the Capitol?
I only knew what I was told. I'd heard a gunshot. We all heard it. And we were so confused. We thought Antifa was breaking in or BLM because of Those were the riots that had gone on and on all throughout 2020, day in and day out. Just horrible riots all over the country, and that was the only thing that made sense to most of us.
What do you mean by BLM? And when...
Oof, nice one off of that. All right, from the Hill. Green lawyer argues her efforts to deny Biden victory qualify as legitimate political speech. From Max Greenwood. Marjorie Taylor Greene's attorney on Friday argued that efforts to deny President Biden's 2020 electoral victory qualified as legitimate political speech and slammed a legal challenge to remove her from Georgia's primary ballot as a plain attempt to deny thousands of her constituents the right to vote. The opening statement from attorney James Bopp came during a hearing to determine whether Greene is eligible to serve in public office. A group of voters are challenging her candidacy, arguing that her alleged role in the selfie fest effectively disqualifies her from running for or serving in Congress. In his opening argument, Bopp argued that Greene's effort to deny Biden's victory, including her calls for a response to Congress's certification of the election results, are protected under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. While he said that the selfie fest was despicable, he argued that Greene should not be held responsible for the actions of those who perpetrated the attack. Bopp also argued that if Greene is ultimately disqualified from the ballot, it would deny residents of her district the right to cast their ballots for the candidate of their choice. The right to vote is at stake, right here, right now, because they want to deny the right to vote to thousands of people in the 14th District of Georgia by having Greene removed from the ballot. He said, later adding, "Our democracy is at stake. It should be the voters who decide our options." The group of voters challenging Greene's candidacy argued that a provision of the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment, known as the Disqualification Clause, effectively prohibits Greene from holding federal office because of her alleged involvement in the January 6th Selfie Fest. The clause, which was passed in the wake of the Civil War, bans any person from holding federal office who has previously taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and who has engaged in insurrection against the United States. In an opening statement, Ron Fine, who's representing the group of voters, argued that while Greene may not have actively participated in the Selfie Fest, she nonetheless played a crucial role in inciting the attack. Your Honor, she was not on the Capitol steps urging the attackers to breach the police lines. No, that was Ray Epps, by the way. And smashed the doors on January 6th. Also Epps. Different figures in this larger effort played different roles, Fine said. Marjorie Taylor Greene nonetheless played an important role. Why? How? From CNN. Marjorie Taylor Greene confronted over old social media posts advocating violence against Democrats in court testimony. Mostly probably stuff that came from before she was a sitting representative. From Andrew Kaczynski. Republican Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia was confronted in court on Friday over a past social media post advocating for violence against Democrats. At the hearing in Atlanta to determine whether Greene is constitutionally barred from running for re-election because of her alleged role in the Selfie Fest, the Congresswoman repeatedly said that she couldn't remember past comments or interactions. CNN's K-File reported last year that prior to being elected to Congress, Greene had repeatedly indicated support for executing prominent Democratic politicians in 2018 and 2019 in comments and posts from social media. At the hearing, Greene initially denied that she had called House Speaker Nancy Pelosi a traitor to our country, as CNN's K-File reported. "No, I haven't said that," the Congresswoman said. Greene eventually admitted to having said that about Pelosi as the attorney questioning the Congresswoman put up an exhibit with her remarks. "Oh no, wait, hold on now," Greene quickly interjected. "Oh no, wait, hold on, I believe that's by securing the border violates her oath of office." Before she ran for Congress, Green created a White House petition in January 2019 to impeach the House Speaker for crimes of treason, citing Pelosi's support of so-called sanctuary policies that are serving illegals and not the U.S. citizens, because Pelosi did not support then-President Trump's border wall. In one speech promoting the petition, Green suggested Pelosi could be executed for her treason. Well, that's a little bit different because in order to get to that point, you've got to have a lot of due process, and Pelosi would probably die in prison before you got through all the due process that was required for that. She's a traitor to our country. She's guilty of treason, Green said in the 2019 video, which she posted on Facebook at the time before the video was removed. She took an oath to protect American citizens and uphold our laws, and she gives aid and comfort to our enemies who illegally invade our land. That's what treason is, and by our law, representatives and senators can be kicked out and no longer serve in the government. And it's a crime punishable by death is what treason is. Nancy Pelosi is guilty of treason. Asked again about her comments on Friday's hearing, Green said that she cannot remember making them and asked if she had said it. According to the CNN article I did, Green said, I don't recall saying any of this. And by the way, if this is all true, then this is part of the reason that I start to look back and say, plant for Green. Because if she is out here running for Congress in a hotly contested district as a populist, you would have think that these would have come out before all this stuff here about the AR-15 and shooting at the pictures of the squad and Nancy Pelosi for treason. You would have thought that all this would have come out sometime during the campaign. We'd have seen wall-to-wall advertisements of this dangerous person cannot be allowed to enter Congress. I mean, we saw it with Judge Moore, although he was a senator. And we saw it with him. The smear campaign was right there. He's a Trump ally. He can never be allowed to enter the Senate. Which is why, again, I think that to some extent, they put her in there specifically so she could say stuff like this. And they don't want her to lose because, they want her to lose because they want to have the the Democrat majority in the House still, but then they have somebody to complain about with Trumpism in the House. This Trumpist is dangerous. But realistically, and here comes MSNBC, of all things. I think this is the first time I've actually used MSNBC on this particular program. But MSNBC saying the quiet part out loud. This is an op-ed, of course, because they'd never be able to say this on regular news. If somebody said this on regular news, they'd be fucking sacked. Because they're telling us, pretty much straight out at this point, that this entire thing was just to get the sound bites. Marjorie Taylor Greene's testimony was a disgrace, but there's a silver lining. From Joyce Vance, MSDNC opinion columnist. Insurrections aren't everyday casual affairs that should go without saying, but somehow, perhaps a symptom of our current political dysfunction. Anti-democratic developments feel almost normal. Or perhaps we're just numb. But either way, there are a number of candidates running for office in 2022 midterms who, like Georgia's Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, were engaged in peddling Trump's big lie that the voter fraud, not the will of the voters, was responsible for his loss in 2020 Hong Kong. The resulting effort to prevent the Senate from confirming Biden's electoral college victory, of course, culminated in the evil selfie fest at the Capitol. Some of Greene's constituents don't believe she deserves a spot on the ballot this year. In a hearing that stretched for hours on Friday, lawyers for a coalition suing Greene called free speech for the people, pointed out the Constitution. Free speech for the people by denying somebody a spot on the ballot that most of the people in your district want. Yeah, that's free speech for the people. Pointed out that the Constitution doesn't normalize insurrection. In fact, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, enacted following the Civil War, explicitly prohibits people who engage in insurrection after taking an oath to support the Constitution holding office. We've read this text numerous times. Reading this text, it might seem like Greene should have been drummed out of the Republican Party for her brazen conduct. Instead, she's become one of the many faces of a party controlled by Trump. Evil Trump. And while some of her constituents are appalled by her behavior, it's unlikely that this challenge to her candidacy will have any teeth. Not that the hearing wasn't illuminating. Greene smirked her way through hours of examination, dodging questions with claims of memory lapses. When lawyers for free speech for the people asked whether she'd advocated for imposing martial law on the country in conversations at the White House, she responded that she couldn't recall. It was a strikingly casual response for a hypothetical conversation most living, breathing human beings would presumably remember for the rest of their lives. Nevertheless, attorneys for the voters seem to fall short of establishing their burden in this proceeding. According to administrative law judge's order, Greene's participation in a violent insurrection. It was far from a clean bill of health for the first-term Georgia Congresswoman, but there's plenty of play in the joints for a decision-maker who's looking to avoid throwing Greene off the ballot. Without getting too deep into the legal weeds, Georgia Republicans eager to avoid intra-party conflict should be able to argue her challengers failed to meet their evidentiary burden. This was a quest for sound bites. That's all this was. This is fishing for something, a campaign commercial that they can plaster all over the television, all over Georgia, and saying, see, this is your representative. She called for insurrection. She can't recall. She's guilty. Guilty as sin. Pull her out of the House of Representatives. Alright. But that's what we have off of that. Alright, let's go talk to DeSantis. Chrissy Clark tweets out, Florida's Department of Education released examples of the CRT-inspired material in math textbooks, and here you have it. Kids are being told that conservatives and more racially prejudiced are conservatives. I'm thinking that means are, supposed to be are. Kids are being told that conservatives and more racially prejudiced than liberals based on data from a debunked test. Let's look at the images here. Application processes. The bar graph shows the differences among groups of the implicit association test that measures levels of racial prejudice. Higher scores indicate the stronger bias. Measuring racial prejudice by political identification. And there we go. Slightly conservative, moderately conservative, and very conservative. Social and emotional learning, building student agency. This unit introduces students to the, which I don't know what's behind this bar feature, the program. This feature is designed to build student agency by focusing on student social and emotional learning, specifically the 5 competencies that make up the framework established by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, CASEL. The 5 competencies are, and it doesn't go on to show any more of this, but I do have this. I can link this back out, this particular tweet, and there is a link off of this to go with as well. So let me put this tweet in the chat for you guys. From the Daily Caller, which I don't usually use the Daily Caller because they're not green check verified, but clearly nobody else is going to cover this. DeSantis' office releases examples of rejected CRT-inspired math textbooks. So again, because it's Daily Caller, do take it with the appropriate grain of salt. I always say that because we do try to stay with green check verified sources on this program, always. So that when the liberals come back over on the Twitch side and say, well, you're only reading from right-wing friendly news sources, I'll say, no, I'm reading from CNN, NBC, MSNBC, The Hill, Politico, etc. From Chrissy Clark. Florida's Department of Education released examples of critical race theory in mathematics textbooks, including one book that proclaimed that conservatives are more racially prejudiced than liberals, according to a press release. Ron DeSantis' office announced Monday that the state's education department rejected 41% of the math textbooks for reportedly including indoctrinating concepts and Common Core standards, according to the Daily Caller News Foundation. Florida's education department released examples of CRT material on Thursday after they received multiple requests from the public to view the alleged controversial books, according to a press release. These examples do not represent an exhaustive list of input received by the department, the presser reads. One textbook showed the students a bar graph that measures racial prejudice by the political identification. The graph shows that conservatives are reportedly more racist than liberals, citing data from the debunked Race Implicit Association test. A separate page highlighted the concept of social emotional learning, which is steeped in the tenets of critical race theory. DeSantis' spokeswoman, Christina Pushaw, initially claimed copyright issues prevented the office from immediately sharing specific examples. Most likely, actually, that's probably legally sound. The state's education department and governor's office have not provided information on which textbooks included CRT-related materials versus those that were axed for Common Core standards. DeSantis' spokeswoman claims that the governor's office is not privy to specifics on which books were rejected. Mainstream news outlets and left-wing activists capitalized on the slow release of CRT examples to criticize Americans who take issue with racial and gender ideology being pushed in public schools. And I actually did the same thing. I said, right sitting here in this chair, that I really wanted to see the examples of this because I wanted to make sure that this had more to do with actual citable examples of what's going on here versus coming out here and saying, oh, well, let's just do this because this is going to make us more money or less money, etc. I do try to be very fair and have all the information out there. Politico reported that DeSantis' math textbook rejection is part of a push to prohibit educators from teaching lessons on gender ideology to students under 8 years old. CNN cited educators that claim CRT is generally not included in grade school teaching. Excuse me. CRT-inspired materials and textbooks are popping up around the country, according to multiple reports. Paradise Valley Unified School District in Arizona also considered adding a math textbook that claimed conservatives are more racist than liberals. Other examples include a public school district in Missouri asking questions on math homework about sexual abuse of a minor, according to DeSantis' spokeswoman. Another question asked about a mother who worked as a pimp, prostitute, and a nightclub dancer. Other listed answers included bookie and drug dealer. Yeah, maybe we should keep that one out of there especially. Christina Pushaw puts out, this is math homework from a public school district in Missouri. How does this help kids learn algebra? Exactly. No wonder China's winning. Y equals x plus 2, 3x plus 6y equals 12. Okay. By the way, x is 1 and y is 2, just so you know. Sorry, 0, 2, that's correct. And with it comes a story problem that says Angelou was sexually abused by her mother's blank at age 8, which shaped her career choices and motivation for writing. So you've got the answers for X and Y, which I completely got wrong on the air and then had to go and correct myself. Going along with boyfriend. X equals Y minus 1. Y equals minus 4X plus 21. Trying to support her young son as a single mother, she worked as a pimp, prostitute, and the answer is C, nightclub dancer, which is also 4 and 5. X is 4. Negative 16 plus 21 is 5. So instead of actually figuring out the mathematical side of it, They're trying to go figure it out via the anecdotal side of it. CRT-inspired materials are popping up at statewide curricula standards as well. Seattle Public School designed its K-12 mathematics curriculum around ethnic studies, according to the district website. Oregon's Department of Education insisted that asking students to show their work was a form of white supremacy. So, there are your examples of what we saw in some of these books. So, also, without links to the books, I do not have a way that I can obviously back this up. I would have to see the source material for myself, obviously. But these are the examples that are being put forward. From ABC Action News, Governor DeSantis signs the Stop Woke Act special district bill into law. From Emily McCain, DeSantis signed HB 7, also known as the Stop Woke Act, into law during a press conference on Friday in Hialeah Gardens. We believe in education, not indoctrination, DeSantis said at a news conference. We believe an important component of freedom in the state of Florida is the freedom from having oppressive ideologies imposed upon what you do upon you without your consent. The law, which will go into effect on July 1st, prohibits Florida public schools and private businesses from making people feel uncomfortable or guilty over their race, sex, or national origin. What we will not allow is to be taught that members of one race, color, national origin, or sex are somehow morally superior, DeSantis said. We're not going to allow teaching that a person simply by virtue of his or her race, color, national origin, or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. That's wrong. A number of Democrat leaders condemned the signing of HB 7. This is a sad day in our state's history. Leader-designate Ramon Alexander of Tallahassee said in part, I truly believe that this legislation furthers systemic racism as an attempt to erase and whitewash American history, its delusional culture war GOP issue, and it dismantles the progress that's been made to create diversity and inclusion training on the workplace and to teach our kids history. In addition to the Stop Woke Act, DeSantis also said he signed 2 other bills in a recent special session, including dissolving 5 special districts, one of which was the notable Reedy Creek Improvement District and the governing jurisdiction and the special taxing district for the land of Walt Disney World Resort. Which we do have the Stop Woke Act here, linked in Scribd. I like the fact that they put all the source material out here. This is a longer bill. This is 30 pages, so a lot of legalese to go comb through. I've not combed through this one yet. There's a lot of strike through as well, so I will have to go through and check the source material on that and see what this actually says and what this means. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Watch. Florida Democrats melt down on House floor as Republicans pass new congressional map. From Ryan Saavedra. Yes, because we're also looking at congressional maps and districts. I know that we had a big meltdown here as well. Florida Democrats reportedly erupted Thursday on the House floor as they were powerless to stop the Republican-led body from passing a new congressional map that's expected to yield favorable results for the GOP. There are currently 16 Republicans and 11 Democrats representing Florida in the U.S. House of Representatives, and the new map, which also adds an additional district, increases Republicans' dominance in the state to what will likely amount to a 20-8 margin over Democrats. The new map effectively targets seats held by Representative Al Lawson, Charlie Crist, and Stephanie Murphy, and potential Rep. Val Demings. And here it is, the video of screaming and yelling as the Florida House lawmakers passed a new congressional map, stripping Disney of its special powers and nixing Disney of its big tech exemption. Let's watch.
And we will vote on these 2 bills. It is my hope that we will be able to proceed civilly and with decorum and with respect for one another. Read the next bill.
By Senator Bradley, Senate Bill 4C, a bill to be entitled an act relating to independent special districts.
Representative Fine, you're recognized to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It seems as Mickey and many have joined us in the chamber today. That said, this is the bill that we discussed yesterday.
Members, we will either go into structured debate or we will call the previous question. Representative Renner, you're recognized for a motion.
Here, Mr. Speaker, I move the previous question on the bill.
Representative Renner moves the previous question on the bill. This motion is not debatable and requires a majority vote. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Show the motion passes. We will now proceed to call the previous question. The clerk will unlock the machine and members will proceed to vote on Senate Bill 4C. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Clerk will lock the machine. Announce the vote.
70 yeas, 38 nays, Mr.
Show the bill
Speaker.
passes. Read the
Man. I don't even know what to say to that, except for, I mean, I've seen a lot of that happen here in Wisconsin as well. So that's fun. Definitely fun. They just sit out there to try to shout it down and hope that it makes it stop. I don't know what the point of that was. Just in, screaming Democrats have shut down the Florida House of Representatives. Doesn't look like it was shut down to me. One for the Democrats just said, these maps passing is the same as Russia invading Ukraine. The hyperbole. Always the hyperbole. Congressional experts noted that if DeSantis' map is successfully implemented, it would entirely wipe out all the redistricting wins that Democrats have secured thus far for the upcoming midterms. If this 20R8D Florida map passes and withstands court challenges, it could net Republicans 4 additional seats, entirely wiping out Dems' national redistricting gains thus far. Dave Wasserman, who analyzes House races as a senior editor at the Quick Political Report, tweeted. It is appalling but not surprising that Republican legislature has abdicated its constitutional duty to draft and pass congressional maps to the governor, Manny Diaz, chair of the Florida Democratic Party, whined in a statement. As proven by the proposed map released today, Governor DeSantis is hell-bent on eliminating congressional seats where Florida's minority communities have the ability to elect representatives, other choice, and he is imposing his own partisan political preferences on Florida's congressional map. So, we will see what goes on with that. Let's continue with this one from NBC, possibly a little bit of review to go with this. After Democrats shut down, Florida Republicans pass new congressional map that kills a black district. From Mark Caputo and Jane C. Tim. The Florida House just passed a new congressional map Thursday after the Democratic legislatures shut down the state's special legislative session for more than an hour with a pray-in and a sit-in inside the chamber. The chamber passed the map just before 1 p.m. as 2 black Democratic members shouted a call-and-response chant in opposition. The new map was drawn at the insistence of Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, who demanded the elimination of a black-heavy congressional seat. Democrats say the redrawn districts unravel black political power in the state. The Senate voted Wednesday to pass the map. The noisy and chaotic proceedings mark the end of an unusual standoff between the legislators, who typically control redistricting, and the governor, who inserted himself into the process to secure a significant political gain for his party nationally. The surprising act of defiance began a little before noon when Yvonne Hinson went over her allotted speaking time and had her microphone cut off, prompting other black legislators to stand without being recognized and gather in the center of the chamber, showing off shirts that read "Stop the Black Attack" and sitting on the state seal on the blue carpet. In all, 4 black legislators and a Hispanic representative, Hinson, Angie, Nixon, Travaris McCurdy, Felicia Robinson, and Daisy Morales, occupied the center of the chamber as bewildered Republicans looked on. House Speaker Chris Sprowls tried to rule them out of order, and when they refused to comply, the session was gavelled into an indefinite recess. The Republicans then left. The TV feed to the Florida channel, which was broadcasting the session, was cut. A Associated Press reporter was kicked off the floor by a sergeant-at-arms and had his media pass taken away, and the top security official kicked out the few members of the public observing in the gallery and barred others from entering. "We're on lockdown," a sergeant said. Democrats alone in the chamber prayed and chanted. Dodie Joseph led a prayer expressing frustration with polarizing politics and spirit of division that she said was stoked by Satan, whom she called the adversary. Well, considering that they're trying to make it possible to groom children in the classroom, you might want to leave that name off your tongue right now. Just saying. So, that's what we see coming off of that. What else do we have? More Florida stuff here. Christina Pushaw, the press secretary for DeSantis. They're really trying this. Publix is a bigger employer in Florida than Disney is. Publix is certainly aware of Floridians' reactions to Disney declaring war on parental rights and losing $41 billion in shareholder value. I doubt Publix will make the same mistake Disney did. Yeah, I don't see that either. They are pretty business friendly and will vote for the people who are in power. This comes because Jack Petox, who is a blue check and I don't know why, says, "Today I resigned from Publix. After 4 years of service, I was so disheartened when the company failed to even make a statement following the more than $200,000 in donations to the sponsors of the Don't Say Gay bill. Let's all call on Publix to stop funding hate." Apparently this kid is a minor. I don't know why he's blue checked, but regardless, I mean, he has the right to have his opinion put out there, but he doesn't have the right to have it taken seriously. So, there's that. But going on here from MEAWW, who owns Publix? Calls to boycott supermarket chain grow as it donated to Don't Say Gay bill sponsors. Yeah, they try that with Pick and Save all the time too around here because it's a Kroger company, and you know the Kroger companies have, what the fuck is her name? Elaine? Is it Elaine or Elizabeth? I don't know. The chick that's married to McConnell. Elaine Chao on the board. So now they go back and they all boycott Pick and Save. I don't even know where there is a Pick and Save around here, to be completely honest. They say there's one in Janesville. I have no idea where it is. From Divya Kishore. Publix has been trending lately, but for all the wrong reasons. It started after a student activist named Jack Petox tweeted that he'd resigned from the supermarket company after it apparently gave money to the sponsors of the Don't Say Gay bill, also called the Parental Rights and Education bill, which limits schools from teaching about sexual orientation and gender issues to students under the age of 8. The bill, which was passed on February 24th and made into law on March 28th, after Florida Governor DeSantis signed it, states that classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through 3rd grade or in a manner that's not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Talking to Twitter, Patox wrote, "Today I resigned from Publix after 4 years of service. I was so disheartened when the company failed to even make a statement following the $200,000 in donations to the sponsors of the Don't Say Gay bill. Let's all call on Publix to stop funding hate." His tweet attracted a lot of attention, with many people joining to call out as well as boycott Publix. The user said, "Good for you. I hope you had an exit interview. I worked for a Publix bakery in South Florida throughout high school and college. When on breaks, I have been hugely disappointed in their leadership, backing Trump and not protecting their employees. Another user targeting Publix's Earth Day tweet noted Publix's new slogan, "Save the Earth, just not the gays." So, and there again, there's a free market off of there. Earl Johnson says, yeah, I remember Publix. They would not hire me at 14 as a bag boy because they didn't hire black bag boys in the 80s and 90s, clerking for a federal judge. And in the 90s, clerking for a federal judge, I worked on the case where they were hammered with the largest sex discrimination class action in history at the time. But that's the magic of the free market. If you don't want to shop at Publix and you don't want to work at Publix, don't. I work for a company now that, for the most part, tends to align with me politically. Even though as I grow older and older, I become less and less political and more leave me alone. They tend to stay anti-woke. They tend to stay, though, on the workers' side, trying to keep workers, etc., etc. So I'm fortunate for that. But yeah, I mean, if they were going down this road, I would resign in a heartbeat. And that's what this kid should have done. Now making the statement about it to go rile up, I think it was more of an attention-seeking move than to do anything, especially because, again, whoever this idiot is blue-checked, but I don't know. I don't know what goes off with that, but, you know, if you don't want to shop at Publix, don't shop at fucking Publix. Alright, what else do we have out here? Cortez, the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez de-Twitch. Screenshotting, not quote tweeting, screenshotting the Daily Mail saying, AOC calls the Supreme Court imperialist for voting to reject Puerto Ricans from getting equal access to benefits as American citizens. To which she comes back and quote tweet, or not quote tweets even, tweets with the screenshot says, Puerto Ricans are American citizens, you compilation of birdcage lining. Which is funny because, again, sitting member of Congress taking a shot at the free press. Let's read from the Daily Mail. AOC Biscuit calls the Supreme Court imperialist for voting 8-1 to reject Puerto Ricans from getting equal access to benefits as other American citizens. From Rob Crilly, senior U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. The Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, de-Twitch, slammed the Supreme Court on Thursday as imperialist after it ruled out that Puerto Ricans were not entitled to the same access to benefits as other Americans. The court voted 8-1 that Congress had the power to exclude them from a benefits program that's available in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Okay. I would have to look into this, but as far as the District of Columbia, I would have to see why DC is eligible for it, but Puerto Rico isn't, of course, not being a state. I would actually have to look into this one. Chavez, whose father's family came from the island, made her anger clear. 2022 imperialist neo-colony vibes, puppy. When my cousins can be drafted into war by a government that they don't have a right to vote for and denies them benefits, yet the same government can exploit their land into a tax haven for crypto billionaires and tax evaders, puppy. She tweeted. The justices backed President Biden's admin in reversing a lower court's ruling that a 1972 decision by Congress to exclude Puerto Rico from the Supplemental Security Income Program violated a U.S. Constitution requirement that laws apply equally to everyone. The ruling denies the benefits to an estimated 300,000 people on the Caribbean island who otherwise might qualify. The federal government has said an expansion covering Puerto Rico would have cost $2 billion last year. Not this colonial status that discriminates against us and affects our quality of life. The only and best solution is statehood, Pedro Lucy, Puerto Rico's pro-statehood governor, said in a statement. Puerto Rico's status is a divisive issue on the island, with some favoring remaining a territory while others push for statehood and even independence from the United States. which I agree with. It's time for somebody somewhere to shit or get off the pot on this one. These are people who are by all rights American citizens. Give them citizenship or let them go and be independent. I actually agree with Cortez on this one, oddly enough. I still think it's funny the fit that she's throwing, but yeah, shit or get off the pot, one way or the other. These are American citizens who don't have the proper representation or equal protection under the law at this point. That's wrong. So either let them go off and be their own country and just watch the grand experiment that takes place off of, or bring them into the fold, let them have equal protection. But this whole limbo thing, dude, fuck you. Seriously. It's the same thing with DACA. Immigration limbo. Except this is citizenship limbo. You're Schrodinger's citizens on Puerto Rico. You're both U.S. citizens and not U.S. citizens. And I really don't care which way it goes. Just make a decision here at some point. A little bit of a based here for you from Fox 5 New York. You wouldn't see a lot of based coming out of New York, but you know, every once in a while we get one here from Fox 5 out of New York. Dozens of New York City teachers investigated over fake vaccine cards. Based. From Fox 5 New York staff. The New York City Department of Education is placing dozens of educators on unpaid leave to investigate whether they tried to use fake vaccine cards to meet the city requirement to continue working in the school system. Spokesperson Nathaniel Steyer said fraudulent vaccination cards are not only illegal, they also undermine the best line of protection our schools have against the pinko fucking pox: universal adult vaccination. We immediately moved to put these employees, fewer than 100, on leave without pay. The United Federation of Teachers, which represents the district employees, says approximately 70 of its members were contacted by the Department of Education. We are reviewing appropriate legal action to potentially challenge the DOE's unilateral action in removing these employees from payroll, the union said in a statement. The employees in question will be put on unpaid leave starting on Monday. Some teachers say they received the notice in error, according to the teachers union, but have not received a response when they alerted the school system's compliance department. The union claims its members are not being given due process by facing unpaid suspensions before issues are cleared up. It is wholly improper for the DOE to unilaterally remove UFT teachers from the payroll based on the mere conjecture that vaccination documentation is fraudulent, Beth Norton, General Counsel of the United Federation of Teachers, wrote to the DOE. Yeah, I would call that illegal, especially if you're under contract. And again, not a fan of public sector unions, but if you're under a contract and you're being denied the terms of your contract, you got a case that you're probably going to win. So take that shit right to court. And then get the fuck out of New York City. Jesus Christ, what are you? If you're unjabbed and you think that you still want to be in New York City, what the fuck are you thinking? Get the hell out of the city. Seriously. But good on them for at least trying. Alright, let's go talk about Elon, which, again, this story might already be outdated. From CNBC, Twitter is reportedly taking another look at Musk's takeover bid. Reports this morning from before we started the program saying that this possibly is already happening as of today. From Jessica Burstinsky. Twitter could be becoming more receptive to a takeover bid from Elon Musk after the billionaire disclosed that he had secured $46.5 billion in financing, the Wall Street Journal reported on Sunday. The social media company has been expected to shoot down the offer and had adopted a so-called poison pill to fend off a potential hostile takeover. But the executives are now re-examining the bid and are more likely than before to try and negotiate, the paper said. Citing people familiar with the matter, the situation is fast-moving, but the two sides are meeting on Sunday to discuss Musk's $4.3 billion proposal, the Journal reported. A Twitter spokesperson declined to comment on the report. The social media giant is reportedly still working on estimating its own value. Executives could also insist on guarantees such as Musk covering breakup protections if the deal fell through, the paper said. Twitter is set to report on its latest financial results on Thursday and had been expected to weigh in on the bid then. Executives could also discuss the deal earlier in the week, the sources said. Twitter could indicate it is open to other bidders negotiating with Musk on certain terms. According to the report, Musk has reportedly said he will not sway from his initial offer. And right now, it sounds about like they're getting ready to come back in and say yes, which I'm willing to bet that there was possibly some conversations, a lawsuit somewhere in there, because the thing is, with most people who are driven mostly by finance and not by wokeism, there are a lot of people that stood to lose a lot of money, especially if the poison pill came out. They stood to lose a butt ton of money. And I don't think the Twitter board was ready to be saddled with damages for that. I don't think that they really had... I don't think that they had a lot of cash on hand to go deal with that. But that's what we see off of that. This one, which didn't get reported by U.S. Media outlets, but got reported by Business Insider of India, of all places. A top Pentagon official said SpaceX Starlink rapidly fought off a Russian jamming attack in the Ukraine. From Kate Duffy. A Pentagon official has detailed the speed at which Elon Musk's SpaceX Starlink fought off a Russian jamming attack in Ukraine. On Wednesday, Dave Tremper, the director of electronic warfare for the Office of the Secretary of Defense, told the C4ISR Net conference that Starlink countered the attack faster than the U.S. military would have been able to. Wow, it's amazing how much better private technology is than government technology, isn't it? Starlink, the satellite-based internet division of SpaceX, has been helping Ukrainians stay online during Russia's invasion. SpaceX CEO Musk sent Starlink kits to Ukraine after Mikhailo Fedorov, the country's vice prime minister, requested help from the billionaire in late February. Musk said on March 25th that Starlink had, at that point, resisted all hacking and jamming attempts. Tremper's comments are thought to provide the first details of a Russian jamming attempt on Starlink systems. Tremper said the day after reports of a Russian jamming attack emerged, Starlink had slung a line of code and fixed it. And suddenly the attack was not effective anymore. He said the countermeasure employed by Starlink was fantastic, adding, "How they did that was eye-watering to me." Once again, the magic of private industry to do things better than the government ever could. You love to see it. You love to see it. From the Hill. Cheney and Zelensky among 2022 JFK Profile and Courage Award winners. Yes, it is so courageous to advocate for war in the Middle East. To kill little brown kids. So courageous. The courage is turned up to 11 on this. A Cheney Courage Award. From Olafimihan Ocean. Liz Cheney and Vladimir Zelensky are among 5 recipients to be presented with the JFK Profile and Courage Award this year. In a statement on Thursday, the JFK Library Foundation and said Cheney and Zelensky will receive their awards along with Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson for what? House Speaker of Arizona Rusty Bowers and Georgia Election Department employees Wandrea Shea Moss. Oh, Jesus. It's a woke award, that's why. Zelensky is being awarded by the foundation for showing resilience, strength, and courage in the face of Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. In late February, Zelensky, a former actor and comedian, has become a wartime hero. No, he hasn't. Leading his nation's resistance from the capital, Kiev. And that's, of course, if you believe the propaganda that our government is putting out. The foundation said Cheney is being recognized for showing resilience after she received numerous threats from her colleagues and others about being one of the few GOP lawmakers to denounce former President Trump's false claims. Oh, fuck you. Okay, I'm done with this article. She toed the party line. She did the GOP thing. She did the establishment thing. She's so brave. So stunning. Nope. The Daily Wire reports the Secret Service says it does not track who meets with President Biden at Delaware residencies. Okay, you've caught my attention. From Tim Pierce. The Secret Service does not track who President Biden meets with when he's spending time at his residencies in Delaware, according to the agency. Biden spent roughly a quarter of the first year of his presidency at his homes in Wilmington and Rehoboth Beach. During his time in Delaware, Biden took both personal days as well as held meetings and conducted business. The Secret Service did not track the president's visitors, official or unofficial, during that time. However, the agency told the New York Post. The Secret Service made the admission to the Post in response to Freedom of Information Act request for visitor logs covering over a year of Biden's presidency. Secret Service Freedom of Information Act officer Kevin Tyrrell told the Post in a statement that the Secret Service FOIA office searched all program offices that were likely to contain potentially responsive records, and no records were located. That is interesting. Biden's son Hunter is currently under investigation for alleged tax fraud over his numerous overseas business dealings in countries such as China, Russia, and Ukraine. Emails from the laptop believed to belong to Hunter suggest that the younger Biden introduced some of his foreign business associates to his father while Biden was vice president under former President Barack Obama. No evidence suggests that President Biden has met with any of his son's business associates since entering the Oval Office. That is interesting. And I wouldn't normally care about this except for the fact that we are sitting in this situation where we have the question of whether or not what's going on with Hunter is appropriate. And we have criticized Biden for spending so much time in his Delaware home, but I mean, are we sitting in a situation where we can look at this and say, well, he's doing this to get around the White House scrutiny while he makes backroom business dealings? I have no idea. I know he plays the demented idiot so well on TV. So this does raise a lot more questions for me. Or, by chance, is this people that Hunter is bringing in to come back and say, hey, let's have some influence here. Hey, look at what my daddy can do. Without, again, having White House scrutiny. And Hunter's orchestrating the whole thing. Is Jill orchestrating the whole thing? Going to set herself, because she's going to live a lot longer than Joe is. This opens up a lot more questions for me. But that's what we see from that. This is a thread, of course. Today, Biden shook hands with Gage Grosskreutz, the felon who nearly murdered Kyle Rittenhouse, and lied to the police about carrying an illegal firearm. And there's Biden, there's Grosskreutz, and a lot of people tried to make this out to be something malicious. I stand by my contention, even though seeing what's happening in Delaware does raise questions for me, that Biden is a demented, senile old fool. I don't think that he knew whose hand he was shaking. And I also don't think that this guy should be crossing state lines with a felony conviction for firearms pending over his head either. But I don't think there was malice on the part of Biden on that. I think he saw somebody that wanted to shake his hand and said, "Oh, you're not thin air. I'll shake your hand." Another one from the Daily Wire, abortion to transgender treatment. Biden to remove Trump rule protecting religious healthcare workers. From Amanda Prestigiacomo. The Biden admin is working to rescind a Trump rule intended to protect religious healthcare workers by allowing them to refuse to provide services which they feel violate their conscious or moral beliefs. Keeping in line with the Biden agenda, a spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services confirmed to Politico Tuesday that measures to rescind the rule are in the works. HHS made it clear through a unified regulatory agenda that we are in the rulemaking process, the spokesperson said. The Trump rule, which was introduced in 2018 and subsequently blocked by the courts, was viewed as a boon to religious liberty, particularly with regard to healthcare workers opposed to increasingly common transgender treatments for children and abortion services. Politico emphasized that Trump's rule would have allowed doctors, nurses, and medical students, pharmacists, and other healthcare workers to refuse to provide abortions, contraceptions, gender-affirming care, HIV and STD services, vasectomies, or other procedure to which they object. Earlier this month, White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead said lawmakers who are working to protect minors from puberty blockers and transgender surgeries have been put on notice by the DOJ. Alabama's lawmakers and other legislators who are contemplating these discriminatory bills have been put on notice by the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services that laws and policies preventing care that health professionals recommend for transgender minors may violate the Constitution and federal law, Bobblehead said at a press briefing. The comments were in reference to Alabama banning doctors from mutilating children or putting them on puberty blockers if they identify as the opposite sex, and advancing parental rights by forbidding teachers instruction on sexuality and gender identity between kindergarten and 5th grade. So, with that being said, I look at this, and my first question, of course, is if you are a religious objector and you're in a position, a company, government work, etc., where you may be forced to do things that violate your religious constructs. My first question is obvious. Why in God's name are you still working for that particular agency or company? Stop working for the government if you think that they're going to put you through something that will violate your religious views or anything else like that. Everybody's hiring right now. Great economy. Everybody's begging for workers. Find something else. But, you will assimilate, you will toe the line, you will do what the Biden admin tells you to. Otherwise, you will be sacked. Some Israel stuff for you from disclosed.tv now. Israel drone drops tear gas in the courtyards of Al-Aqsa Mosque. First question is, how do we know that drone is an Israeli drone? Come on, people. And why did they do this? Which I've not been able to find a confirmation on that, but our friends over at NPR have told us that clashes between Israel police and Palestinians continue at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And remember, they need to tell you why you must support the current thing, whether it be Palestine or Israel, because NPR told you to. So hit that donate button so they can afford to keep telling you what it is that you're supposed to believe. Donate now, because your taxpayer money doesn't help them, and it's not really your money, comrade, it's our money. NPR, never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what Scott Simon has to say. For much of this past week, clashes have broken out at the most sensitive and contested site in Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Palestinians, most of them young, threw rocks at Israeli police, who then used tear gas and other measures to try to disperse them. All of this during two of the holiest observances in the Muslim and Jewish calendars, Ramadan and Passover, and PR's Peter Kenyon joins us now from Jerusalem. Peter, thank you for being with us. Hi, Scott. And help us understand what's been going on these past few days. Well, for most of this week, young Palestinians would attend dawn prayers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and then some would throw rocks at Israeli police, and they responded with percussion grenades, rubber bullets. Yesterday, there was gas dropped from an Israeli drone, and right-wing Jewish groups would make their way to the Temple Mount, the most sacred site in Judaism. There have been daily tallies of injured or arrested Palestinians. Yesterday, one young man fell into a coma. He's said to be in critical condition. Today is a bit different. No stone throwing, no police charge at Al-Aqsa, but another issue. An Israeli police presence at the Christian site, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where church officials say police are limiting the number of worshippers who can attend services. They're demanding a special police permit to get in, and the worshippers don't have those now. Meanwhile, there have been rockets fired from the Gaza Strip in Israel, including some early today. Israel's been responding with airstrikes and other measures, and there have been incidents elsewhere, and a curfew in the West Bank. So basically, a tense and sometimes violent week. So, more fights back and forth. At one point, the mosque is going to fall, and that's probably going to trigger the Armageddon. But something to continue to watch. Oh, did you know that our military is about to be climate friendly, you guys? From disclose.tv.
In the United States military, every vehicle is going to be climate friendly. Every vehicle.
Why is he facing that direction, by the way?
We're going to no, I mean it. We're spending billions of dollars to do it. And in the United States military, every vehicle is going to be climate friendly.
So what? Are they all going electric? Are they going to have the big blue hybrid symbol on there? The eco-friendly blue glow symbol on there? Is that going to be camouflaged back out? Or, what about all the bullets? Hey, how climate friendly is it going to be as they go out and indiscriminately shoot people in nations that are predominantly brown? From the Hill, Pelosi to make RuPaul's Drag Race appearance. From Judy Kurtz, Speaker Pelosi is getting ready to reunite with the Glamazons, making a return appearance on RuPaul's reality TV series. Pelosi will make a special appearance on the upcoming season of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. Paramount Plus announced on Friday the new season of the drag queen competition premieres on May 20th on the streaming network and will follow previous winners who are duking it out to earn the title of Queen of All Queens and a $200,000 cash prize. So, is Nancy in drag? Is that why she looks the way that she does? It'll mark a reunion of sorts for Pelosi, who made a cameo on RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars in 2018. Nancy praised the TV show stars after her inaugural appearance, saying in the interview that year, This idea of people believing in themselves, being themselves, taking pride in themselves, is not just a lesson for politicians, but for everyone in the country. That's why I was so excited and couldn't resist being on the show. In addition to Pelosi, the star-studded roster of celebrity guest judges includes Cameron Diaz, Ronan Farrow, Ben Platt, fashion designer Betsy Johnson, Tav Lowe, and Nikki Glaser. That's going to be insufferable in and of itself. among others. In a promotional video for the show's new season, Pelosi is seen reciting one of RuPaul's catchphrases to the contestants. Can I get an amen? So Pelosi's going to be on RuPaul. I think that explains a lot. From CBS. It looks like you're using an ad blocker. I'll fix it next time. Fuck you. I'm not actually going to fix it next time, but... Tennessee passes a bill that will require drunk drivers to pay child support if they kill a parent of a minor. Based. From Caitlin O'Kane. A Tennessee bill that would require drunk drivers to pay child support if they kill a parent due to intoxication or aggravated vehicular homicide is passed. House Bill 1834 would require a person who is convicted of vehicular homicide to pay each restitution in the form of child maintenance if their victim was the parent of a minor child. Each child of the victim would receive the restitution until they reach 18 years old and graduate high school. The payments are similar to traditional child support, in which a parent pays the primary caregiver of their child until that child becomes a legal adult at the age of 18. The amount of payments will be determined by the financial needs and resources of the child and their surviving parent or guardian, including the state if the child is in the custody of the Department of Children's Services. Also, similar to traditional child support, the standard of living the child is accustomed to will also be a factor in determining the amount of the payments. If the defendant is incarcerated or unable to pay the required child maintenance, they have 1 year after their release from incarceration to begin paying. The bill had already unanimously passed the state's House before it unanimously passed in the Senate on Wednesday. An amendment to rename the bill Ethan Hale and Bentley's Law was added before it passed. Those are the children of Nicholas Gallinger. According to local reports, Gallinger was a 38-year-old Tennessee police officer when he was killed by Janet Hines, who was intoxicated when she hit him with her car in 2019, according to the Associated Press. In February, Hines was sentenced to 11 years in prison for the fatal hit and run. So, again, and that's full-on responsibility for a negligent negligent harm that you caused. I am in support of that. I'm not usually support into overreaching attempts by the government to make people pay other people, but you did something stupid. You hurt people and you took their stuff, in that case their parents, and you shall be held responsible. I think that's fucking based as shit. Alright, and the last one, before we look into the rules of acquisition. Thank you, Arvold, for putting this up into the Discord. By the way, the Discord links are there. What's right there on the YouTube side. If you're not in the Discord and you do want to affect the show, put stuff in there. I will look into it. If I can find a green check verified, we'll talk about it right on the show. Which I was able to find this green check verified. From ABC 24, it's Confederate Heritage Month again in Mississippi. Why Governor Reeves is defending the Proclamation. From Emily Wagster Pettis of the Associated Press. Tate Reeves is defending his decision to again name April as Confederate Heritage Month nearly 2 years after he signed a law retiring the last state flag in the U.S. that featured a Confederate battle emblem. The Republican governor signed a proclamation without fanfare Friday. It does not mention slavery, the defense of which was Mississippi's stated reason for trying to secede from the U.S. In response to a question at a news conference on Wednesday, Reeves said he issued a Confederate Heritage Month proclamation in the same manner and fashion that the 5 governors that came before me, Republicans and Democrats alike for over 30 years, have done. And we did it again this year, Reeves said. Didn't think that this was the year to stop doing it. 4 governors before Reeves, not 5, issued Confederate Heritage Month proclamations by state law. Mississippi also has a Confederate Heritage Day in April, which is a holiday for state employees. Mississippi has taken steps in recent years to distance itself from symbols of the Confederacy, including removing some monuments with critics saying the images glorify racism in a state where nearly 40% of the residents are black. In June of 2020, Mississippi legislators voted with bipartisan support to retire the Confederate-themed state flag, and voters that November approved a new flag featuring a magnolia. Reeves' office did not announce his signing of the latest Confederate Heritage Month proclamation. The Mississippi Free Press was the first to report that a Sons of Confederate Veterans chapter on Monday had a social media post showing it. Reeves has issued a similar proclamation each year since becoming governor in January of 2020. Which is all, I mean, it's well and cool. Go celebrate whatever you want to celebrate in Mississippi. That's not a big deal to me. It's Mississippi. I don't know why Tate Reeves would sign a proclamation celebrating Democrats in Mississippi. I really don't, but hey, you know, do your thing. Do whatever it is that you feel right. And there is history to this as well, and you know, there is good and bad. I mean, you get this whitewashed version of what the Civil War was and how the Union was and how Lincoln was when you go to school. When you realize that there were a lot more tensions and a lot more things that were going on with that than just the issue of slavery, especially habeas corpus and the ability to voluntarily be a part of this Union. There's a lot more to the Civil War than just the question of slavery. And the most ardent Democrats in the world who want to say that the party switched in 1967 will be the first ones to say, to come out here and tell you, no, it was all about slavery. There was no other issue. Just racism and slavery. Racism and slavery. That was everything. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. But that's what we see off of that. So, with that, we finish out and we head out of here for the day. But not before checking in with the rules of acquisition, like we do every Monday. So let's find our place. Let's find where we were. We're getting through this quite quickly. So I don't know what's going on with the 68th rule of acquisition. Risk doesn't always equal reward, the fact that it's struck through. I might have to go back and research that and figure out why that is struck through like that. So we're going to skip that one for now. We're going to do the 69th rule of acquisition. Of course, we looked at the 66th rule of acquisition, that somebody's ears are always bigger. We had a nice time with that one here. Now we're going to look at the 69th rule of acquisition. Ferengi are not responsible for the stupidity of other races. This is from a Next Generation novel, Balance of Power, which, you know, the Ferengi were supposed to be the big villains of the Next Generation before their comical appearance made them not such big villains. And then we got, of course, the inception of the Cardassians, who were closer to evil by the Roddenberry sense of things, although wound up having a much, much richer cultural heritage as they went along. And the Borg, of course. But looking at this and looking at it through the lens of the Next Generation and the way that the Ferengi were supposed to be as they went to this, Ferengi are not responsible for the stupidity of other races. And really, honestly, when you look at this and we look at some of the signs that we see around some of our businesses, then yes, there are things out there. There are things that happen out there where you are responsible for. If it happens in your business, if it happens in your home, if it happens in, and our litigious society has made you responsible for a lot more things that you should not be. If a home invader breaks in through your window and cuts himself on the glass, hey, you're getting sued for injury. But there is a difference, and we're not going to go on race for this, even though I'm sure that a lot of the viewers that are currently chatting right now would like to go on and talk about race off of this, but we will talk about the general stupidity of the customer coming in and doing things. Now, if the customer is going up a set of stairs and a loose board breaks because you didn't notice it, fix it, that person injured himself on your property, you're probably going to be on the hook for the damages. But if you're in a ring store and you get the sizing chart for the ring, and one of your customers tries to deep throat and gets it jammed in his throat, you probably shouldn't be responsible for that. That is the stupidity of your customer to go back and do this, or somebody who's out there specifically seeking some sort of litigation. And I mean, that does go on too with the break into the window and cut yourself on the glass thing off that. You have done a stupid thing, and if you didn't get shot outright, which I believe that you should, you have taken, I mean, that comes with the risk and the reward. If you go break in to try to steal something, what you stole would be the reward, but getting cut or potentially getting shot is the risk. And you shouldn't be responsible for the stupidity of others. Not just other races, but just others in general. You absolutely shouldn't. There is no reason for that, and do make sure, especially if it's posted too. Customer enjoys service at its own risk. We are not responsible for irresponsible use of particular products. So I think that's a really good way to come back and look at this, because yeah, there's too much litigation out there for people who are either too stupid to function in regular society, or who are specifically looking for something to go back and find an easy payday out of it, as you will. But with that is what we see coming up for this. Let's switch up the scene here. Let's switch up the music, and let's head out of here for the day. All right, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, came and hung out with us, talked about what it is we needed to talk about, learned about the things that we needed to learn, and did the things that we needed to do. I'll be back here later on tonight for KTZed Redemption, talking about the Elon takeover, the Marjorie Taylor Greene hearings. I will be talking about the CNN Plus thing and taking a victory lap over that. That was so much fun. We'll be talking about some of these food processing plants and student loans and a plethora of other things. Will we be able to finish on time? I have no idea. I hope we are, because we've got a lot to go over here, so definitely come back and join us for that over here on KTZed Redemption. Otherwise, come back and join us here in the morning for more contemporary, as we talk more about the news that happens in the next 24 hours, including possibly, maybe, a buyout of Twitter. We'll see what happens with that. Looking forward to that, looking forward to seeing what's happening with that, and looking forward to seeing you all chatting here tomorrow for more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.